Introduction. Welcome to this video on the Zanzibar War, a short but significant conflict that took place in 1896 between the Sultanate of Zanzibar and the British Empire. In this video, we'll explore the background, causes, and outcomes of the war, and its impact on the history of East Africa. Background. Zanzibar was a small island off the coast of present-day Tanzania, which had been under the rule of the Sultanate of Oman since the 17th century. The island became a major center for the slave trade in the 19th century, with thousands of African men, women, and children being shipped to the Middle East and the Indian Ocean world as forced labor. In 1873, the British Empire declared a ban on the slave trade, which put pressure on Zanzibar to end its involvement in this lucrative business. However, the sultans of Zanzibar were reluctant to give up their profits, and the trade continued underground. The rise of Khalid bin Barghash. In 1890, the British signed a treaty with Germany, which gave the latter control over several African territories, including Tanganyika, present-day Tanzania. This move threatened the influence of Zanzibar, which was a British protectorate and a key trade partner with the British Empire. In 1896, when Sultan Hamad bin Thuwaini died suddenly, his nephew Khalid bin Barghash declared himself the new sultan, in defiance of the British authorities. Khalid was a young and ambitious ruler, who saw an opportunity to assert his independence from the British and expand his power. The British demanded that Khalid step down and recognize their authority, but he refused, and instead fortified the palace with his supporters. The situation soon escalated into a confrontation between Khalid and the British. The war begins. On August 27, 1896, the British sent warships to the harbor of Zanzibar and began shelling the palace. Within 40 minutes, the palace was destroyed, and Khalid fled to the German consulate for asylum. The British installed a new sultan, Ali bin Said, who was more amenable to their interests. The Zanzibar War was one of the shortest recorded wars in history, lasting only 38 minutes. However, it had significant consequences for Zanzibar and East Africa. Impact of the war. The British used the war as a pretext to establish more control over Zanzibar. They abolished the slave trade once and for all, and imposed a new treaty that gave them greater power over the island's affairs. The British also increased their military presence in East Africa, as they sought to protect their interests in the region. The war marked a turning point in the relationship between European powers and African states. It demonstrated that European powers would use force to protect their interests in Africa, and paved the way for further colonization and exploitation. Legacy of the war. The legacy of the Zanzibar War can still be felt in East Africa today. The war highlighted the tension between local rulers and European powers, and the struggles for independence that would continue for decades to come. It also underscored the destructive impact of colonialism on African societies, and the need for decolonization and self-determination. Conclusion. In conclusion, the Zanzibar War was a brief but pivotal event in the history of East Africa. It showed the complexity of the colonial era, and how the actions of a few individuals could have far-reaching consequences. The war also reminds us of the ongoing struggles for justice and equality in Africa, and the importance of understanding the historical context of these struggles. Thank you for watching this video on the Zanzibar War, and we hope you've gained a better understanding of this significant event in East African history.